Welcome to First and Goal for week six. Week six already. I can't believe it. As always, presented by rosters.com. If you guys haven't been over to Rosters yet, please be sure to go over there, sign up using the promo code CURVE, and you'll get an instant $20, not a slow drip, an instant $20 on your initial $10 deposit. So deposit 10, end up with 30. Not a bad deal. As always, each week in First and Goal, you know myself, and that's Adam Pfeiffer right over there. We're going to bring you guys our thoughts on the previous week, and also let's look at our initial first look for the week ahead. I think it's a great way to kind of break down the slate. Of course, everybody has usually does their research Wednesdays to Thursdays, so Tuesday afternoons is a great way to approach the first look because there's a lot of ways to allow us to see some good stuff. So last week, just a quick recap. The RotoCurve tools were unbelievable, and that includes definitely want to include all Adam's stuff that he mentioned in his content on his pieces. He was excellent as well. So let's just get right into it. Adam, week 5 thoughts. How are you? And I want to hear you talk about this dream you had because it's really incredible.
Yeah. So it was a good week for me. The Bills won the third straight. That was pretty cool. But yeah, like Wednesday night, I think I had this dream at Sammy Coates. Well, to be fair, it was that he would have 2 long touchdowns. He had 1 long touchdown and then a short touchdown, but still he had 130 yards or something and 2 touchdowns. Legitimately had this dream, tweeted it, and people like some people told me that they played Sammy Coates and picked him up and played him because of that, which was like stupid if you ask me. But like in all honesty, like it was a good play regardless. Like it was a great spot for him. But yeah, it was one of the crazier things. Like it came to fruition. It was kind of cool. But yeah, it was a pretty good week. The only thing that sucked about this week is like the Bills have been playing well, but like they could be 5-0, like on it, like easily. They just had a couple stinkers. So
yeah,
and the Eagles lost.
Yeah,
like I said,
you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. I'm watching the game and I'm like, oh, you know what? Got to make a play here. Got to make a player there. And then it ends and I'm like, you know what? Adam told us that on Tuesday. He told me that on Wednesday. He told me on Friday during RC Live. And I was like, you know what? Just listen to the guy. He dreamt about Sammy Coates. So maybe I'll listen this week.
If they didn't commit like 16 penalties, might have been different.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, it happened. Now they lost Lane Johnson, so it could be a long next couple weeks with that schedule. Now, Adam, please, can you just let us know, everybody watching, of course, too, can you somehow let us know when you have a dream again this week? Because whoever it is, I'm putting in the lineups.
Yeah, I hope I have another dream. Maybe I don't know because I've been a little sick the last week or so I've been taking some medicine, and when I take like Benadryl and stuff, that it gives me like these like I dream all the time. I'm not even exaggerating. So maybe I'll just take like 6 things of Benadryl tonight and try to have as many fantasy football related dreams as possible.
Well, if you take all those Benadryl and then have a dream about the exact lineup for the Millie Maker, if you wouldn't mind shooting me a text for the winning lineup,
yeah, I got you.
Maybe I can win $1 million. Help
might have Colin Kaepernick this week.
I mean, we'll definitely talk about that because that's going to be an intriguing option. Of course, Kaepernick starting for the Niners. But before we get into the games this week, Adam, as always, let's talk about our Week 5 thoughts. Starting at quarterback, the top guys were Marcus Mariota. Is that right? Marcus Mariota. Of course, we know about Tom Brady throwing for 8 million yards and Big Ben leading that Pittsburgh offense. So at quarterback, Mariota had another week that a lot of people didn't necessarily think about using him, but he was low owned and threw 3 touchdowns. So Adam, what did you think about Mariota in week 5? And are you looking at him this week?
Dude, it's so tilting. Like, how many times have we talked about Mariota already this season? How many times have I written him up and then he falters in good matchups? Has another good matchup here, but nobody's on him. I threw him in a tournament lineup with Delaney Walker at like 12.55 because I saw around the NFL Twitter page say I have like one of their bold predictions was that Mariota was gonna have a big game. So I was like, whatever, it's a good matchup. This is a guy I've been on all offseason, so why not? But the thing about him is the Titans offense has had their best 2 weeks of their season in terms of production the last 2 weeks. So maybe they're starting to get it going. And Mariota's running the ball a lot more, which is really the main reason I was interested in him this year. So, yeah, it's going to be hard not to be interested in him against Cleveland. We'll talk about that. But, 6,100, I think, is his price tag now. It's very affordable. And it's we've seen it every single week this year and even back to last year. Quarterbacks just have such a high floor against the Browns. So,
Exactly. We will definitely get into that game more later. Touching on week 5 running backs, top guys, David Johnson, Zeke Elliott, who feels like he's going to get 100 and a touchdown every week for the rest of his career. Of course, Tevin Coleman, again on limited touches. It's good to see him do that in high altitude with the sickle cell trait he had. Jordan Howard was an excellent value play. His price did go up, but he's still an excellent option. And Theo Riddick, what about this guy? I wanted to talk about that real quick, Adam, because Nigel Bradham was suspended relative, or what people heard for the first half, but still played some snaps. When you watch the Eagles, he's the guy that covers the running backs a lot in the screen game, and he's the guy that follows them on third down. So with him not playing like that, I think that's a big reason why Riddick had those 2 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah, Michael Kendricks has been bad in coverage since last year, which is weird because he's like blazing fast, right? You'd think he'd be better in coverage than he is, but
yeah, he's just clueless or something.
He's just kind of lost. So, advantage of that, and the reason that Riddick was at least a little interesting is because you knew for the most part the Lions would not be able to run between the tackles against the Eagles, and like. Only Marvin Jones has more targets than Riddick on the line, so like you knew he was going to be involved. But kind of hard to predict 2 touchdowns for Riddick, but he's kind of like their second red zone option in that offense because they run these quick outs out of the backfield and screens and with Riddick when they're inside the 10. So and with Golden Tate like dead somewhere, like he's not going to be a factor. So.
Yeah, it was actually kind of cool getting to see both of them in the backfield for a few plays. Golden Tate lining up, and I think one of the touchdowns they scored was a fake toss to Golden Tate to the outside, which actually sent up a reverse screen to Riddick, which fantastic play calling there by Jim Bob Cooter. So it'll be interesting to see going forward if the Lions continue to use Riddick as they did last week, which he was decent between the tackles, but not many carries. As we talked about before, the Lions can't really run the ball between the tackles. How about wide receiver? Sammy Coates, we just talked about him. He was a dream come true, literally, for you. But these other guys, T.Y. Hilton, Amari Cooper, what a week it was for those mid-tier receivers.
Yeah, we talked about this before we went live, but I loved Hilton and Luck. They were my quarterback wide receiver stack and my Millie Maker lineup because Hilton has seen double-digit targets in every game this season with Moncrief out. He is the guy. Dorsett's been terrible. And look, the Colts are a team that are literally trailing over 75% of the time. Like they won last week, but this is a bad defense that's forcing Luck to throw. He's has 40 pass attempts in almost every game this season. So the volume for T.Y. Hilton for the next couple weeks and probably for most of the season, even when Moncrief's back, is going to be through the roof. And it's good to see the Colts starting to go downfield a lot more. So T.Y. Hilton's a borderline top 6 or 7, 8 guy the rest of the season, at least as of right now, because you can't ignore double-digit targets every week in an offense that's already seeing an insane amount of volume anyway.
Yeah, he'll definitely be in the conversation for cash now, and especially with seeing the struggles with Julian Edelman and Jarvis Landry in the last couple of weeks. Hilton might be the guy in relatively the same price range and good matchups to be the guy to go over with in cash. Tight end, I think there's just one name to mention, Martellus Bennett. The guy had 3 touchdowns, and that was with Gronkowski playing, who also had over 100 yards in his first game back with Tom Brady returning. So tight ends for the Patriots look like they're two tight end offense again. We saw it a few years ago with Aaron Hernandez. But that was the really only tight end worth mentioning that crushed last week. I know Delaney Walker had that touchdown, but Adam, real quick, what about this Patriots offense? Is Martellus the guy going forward as well, regardless if Gronk plays a lot?
Yeah, he's always going to be in the conversation with as long as Brady's there. Like they're gonna. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you saw and knew that they would run that 11 personnel pretty much exclusively with Gronk getting back to 100% and Bennett there and Brady. So yeah, like Gronk is going to be more involved in the red zone. You would think soon. But this is going to happen with when you have 2 guys here. Part of the reason why Edelman didn't have an explosive game, he still had 10 targets and led the team. But like, you're even though Tom Brady and this offense should be a top 5 unit the rest of the way, like you're not going to have games where everybody gets one. Gronk's not going to have a touchdown. Bennett, Hogan, Edelman, Blunt, like they're not all going to go off. So sometimes these games are going to happen where. Like Cleveland's just terrible. Like they were leaving him open half the time. So probably won't be able to count that again. But like These two tight ends, we've seen this in New England for years. So
Yeah, exactly. And our last thoughts, moving on before we talk of week 6, it kind of ties in the first game of the slate, which Thursday night is Denver against San Diego. But let's just talk about real quick, Adam. The Chargers lead the NFL in minutes led. Basically, they've been leading for the most time in the NFL, and it's really not even close. The problem is they're 1-4. Every week this team blows it, and it's kind of hard to watch, especially if you know any Chargers fans that are just kind of sitting out there like, here we go again every single week. So taking them into this week, our first game, Denver at the Chargers, do you think they're going to blow it again this week, or is this going to be all Denver all the way?
I don't think they're gonna have a chance to blow it. As long as Simeon's under center, like Paxton Lynch was brutal. The offensive line was brutal for Denver, but I don't know. Coming off a loss, I mean, maybe they could hang around because Denver's defense, if you watch the game, was on the field like all the time. Like they might be pretty tired. I don't know, man. Like Denver coming off a loss at home. Oh no, they're not at home. It's in San Diego. I don't know. If they're winning, like they've done it 4 straight weeks now where they blow it at the end. Gordon fumbles again. They botch a snap, a field goal. Like I don't want to pick the Chargers. I don't really like anybody in this game for fantasy either, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm very, very glad this game's on Thursday night because it's not going to be in the main slate. We can completely ignore it. Now, obviously, those that like to use contrarian lineups and GPPs wish this game was a thing because we could just avoid it completely. But I'm with you. The Chargers is just that offense doesn't really look right with the exception of Phillip Rivers in the second half of games. I don't know what it is. It's just seemed to struggle. Now, with that being said, Phillip Rivers always seems to throw for 1,000,000 yards, and he would be the only person worth using, as I was on him last week, just because of the fact that he would be throwing a lot. The problem is Denver's secondary is rather good, I would say, with Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, probably the best secondary we've seen in a long time when you really look at it.
Yeah, and like which one of these receivers is gonna like match up well? Like none of these receivers match up well against Talib or Harris or even Roby, really. So
yeah,
I don't know. Like we're waiting for Rivers to have one of these games where the lack of weapons and pass catchers that are really good on it. Like Travis Benjamin, I like. Tyrell Williams has shown some signs, but like this feels like one of the first game where Rivers kind of takes a step back.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is definitely a game to just kind of stray away from. But let's move on to Sunday. The first game we have here on the big slate. A lot of games this week. Just 2 teams on bye. Of course, we know about the Monday night game and the Thursday night game. So we're going to have a 13-game slate on Sunday. Cincinnati at the New England Patriots. Tom Brady's first game at home this season, and honestly, I expect to see something similar to the Browns in terms of passing volume, where it's his first game at home. They want to come out firing when you look at it from a narrative perspective. But I also think that nobody, even the Bengals, who have a pretty good defense, at least on paper, can stop those 2 tight ends with a Garrett Blount in the backfield. And how about Chris Hogan? Just add another narrative to that repertoire of wide receivers. Edelman, Amendola, Hogan, they're all basically the same guy, but Hogan looked really good down the field too. I just don't think anybody's going to stop the Patriots for the rest of the season, and it continues this week. So I'm all over that offense again.
Hogan's their deep threat. Like you saw in the preseason, him and Brady connected on a bunch of deep passes, and you saw it in week 5. So yeah, Hogan's my dude, yo. I love Hogan. But yeah, for this game, Brady's absolutely in play again. So the last time he had like 2, very, very talented tight ends in offense, obviously Aaron Hernandez and Gronk. Brady posted the 2 highest yardage totals of his career, and you saw last week he had over 400 passing yards. So Brady in this offense should eat pretty much every week. And to put it into perspective, the first 4 games of the season, New England was 24th in red zone scoring attempts per game. They're already up to 15th. So like. The offensive opportunities for everybody with Brady back is just obviously much better. I don't know if I want to play the running backs now, though. I think Blount is like not in play anymore. We talk about a lot with New England where when Brady's there, they kind of throw short as their running game. And, Blount's snap percentage went down to 39%, the lowest of the year. James White went up to 48%. So, like, I think Blount is kind of done for in terms of DFS. Like, unless they're like at home against like Miami or something again where he should eat in garbage time. But like, yeah, I don't have any interest in Blunt. And then the wide receivers, like, it's almost a guessing game now. Like Edelman still led the team in targets, should be fine in PPR sites, but like Chris Hogan's there, he's seeing the big play ability. Gronk's only going to get healthier. Bennett's there, so it's kind of like you kind of see who has the best matchup in terms of the opposing defense. So and the tight ends, I think you can play both tight ends pretty much any week, and just like Bennett with Gronk 100% in this offense is probably better than what all but 6 or 7 tight ends in fantasy really most weeks.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, I agree. And on the other side, Cincinnati, I'm not really looking at anyone. Belichick has been notorious for trying to take away that number one option, which we all know is A.J. Green this week. I don't think he's going to be worried about the running game, Jeremy Hill, Gio Bernard. Although I
like
think,
Gio.
Yeah, I do think this could be a game where Gio just gets 8 to 10 catches just because of the game flow, especially if the Patriots go up huge early. So I'm with you there. I think Gio has a chance in PPR formats to be a good play.
So Gio outsnapped Jeremy Hill 53-15, but Hill re-injured his chest during that game. Plus, it was well out of reach. They were down 28-0 at one point. But Gio is better than Gio is one of my guys that since he came in, like Gio and who's the other guy I really like? Can't think of. David Johnson. Like these two dudes that I just love watching. Like they're two of my favorite backs to watch. But he looked good. He ran well, 9 for 50 on the ground, hauled in 6 passes in garbage time. Game flow should be similar and could benefit Gio over Hill again. And New England's coughing up the 3rd most receptions and the 8th most targets to opposing running backs. Gio on DraftKings, that's where you want him over FanDuel, 4,600, more than fair. And we got to keep an eye on Tyler Eifert. If he plays like this, they desperately need him. They're scoring touchdowns in 40% of their red zone trips, which is the 3rd worst rate in the league. Like they have nobody other than AJ Green. I know Brandon LaFell scored 2 cheap garbage touchdowns last week, but if Eifert plays and we get any indication that he's not going to be limited, he's only 4,100. We're going to get to a point when he comes back that 4,100 is a steal for Tyler Eifert. So keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. Eifert was up over 6,000 on DraftKings towards the end of last season. Scored a touchdown on average in every game. Ended up with 14 on the season, I believe the number was. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. 4,100, they're going to be passing. But for me, I agree with you. I think Gio is the one guy in PPR formats only to target on that side of the ball. Of course, we all love the Patriots. This next game, Baltimore Ravens at the New York Giants. The big news here out of Baltimore is Mark Trestman was fired. So they're going to have a new play caller, a new offensive coordinator. Maybe they're going to finally get Terrence West the ball. Finally. The guy averaged almost 9 yards a carry and didn't touch the ball until, I think, 3 times in the 3rd quarter. Didn't touch the ball in the 4th quarter. You're not going to win games with that offense and Joe Flacco throwing the ball 50 times a game. Just not going to happen, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just reading something. Justin Forsett's about to sign up the Lions. But yeah, that was annoying because he was gashing Washington like most running backs do, and then didn't even see a lot of red zone work either. I don't really have interest in anybody on Baltimore other than potentially Steve Smith, but he suffered an ankle injury. So if he has a high ankle sprain, that's going to put a real dent on his production and ability. But if he's good to go, this is a great spot for Steve Smith. We've seen these smaller slot receivers destroy the Giants. Cole Beasley in week 1, Randall Cobb last week, Jamison Crowder a couple weeks ago. So I like Steve Smith, but other than that, Flacco's been so underwhelming. I mean, he's got to be among the leaders in pass attempts, and I think the RotoCurve account tweeted that what does he have, the fewest fantasy points per attempt in the NFL?
The lowest. Yeah. It's not even the only person below him is Tress Way, who's a punter. So it's just
he's been really bad in
that department. Yeah,
I can't play Flacco. If I'm gonna play Flacco, I'm not gonna play him in cash, obviously, which means the only way I'd play him is in tournaments, and he just doesn't have the upside because he hasn't shown it. If he's been throwing the ball 40 times and still producing this, I don't want to play him. On the Giants side, we got awesome news out of Baltimore. So Sharice Wright was apparently benched last week, but he wasn't. He suffered an injury that was, a last-minute type thing, and they sat him. Looks like he's going to be back this week.
Beautiful.
Which means if he sees any of Odell Beckham, Beckham could go nuts. He saw 12 targets last week, scored. Most likely, though, it's going to be probably – I know they move Odell around a lot, so maybe they try to get him on trees right. So Victor Cruz should see a good amount of him. We know Sterling Shepard lines up in the slot over 90% of the time. So, yeah, I love Odell Beckham here. I'm going to keep playing him until he has that monster game. You know it's coming. And wide receiver ones have had a lot of success against Baltimore. You saw Corey Coleman score 2 touchdowns. Allen Robinson scored 2 touchdowns. And I consider Michael Crabtree their wide receiver one in Oakland. We know what he did against Sharice Wright and company. Pretty sure we can say Odell Beckham is as good or better than all those receivers. So, yeah, I like Beckham. And I don't think the Giants can be able to run the ball again here. So, definitely like Odell Beckham. But I don't know how I feel about Eli. Dude only has 2 passing touchdowns over his last 4 games. He is at home. What do you think about Eli? I feel like there's just other guys I like better.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. There is other guys in the same price range I like better. But with that being said, considering the matchup, I think he makes for an excellent tournament play.
His price went down, too. He's really cheap.
Exactly,
He's $5,900.
yeah. And you know, like you mentioned, only 2 touchdowns in the past month. But when you look at it, you know that the regression or progression, I guess you could say, is going to be coming. Because the guy's not going to be held to 2 touchdowns with those weapons in 4 weeks again. I don't think it's going to happen.
Should have had a second touchdown last week. Will Tye dropped an easy one, which killed me because I had him in my Millie Maker lineup.
Yeah, exactly. That changed the direction of DFS in big GPPs in a huge way.
Changed the Giants' game too, because the next play Eli got sacked and fumbled, and
exactly.
the Packers got another field goal.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I do like Eli a little bit this week as a tournament play. There are options I like better at the price range, but that means that he's an excellent tournament play just by nature, really, when you think about the ownership percentages. You know, the weapons are there. You know, the matchups are there. So I'm going to dig more into that this week, see if I can find more numbers. The next game we have on the slate here is something I circled when the season began. We're looking at the Carolina Panthers traveling to the Saints in what looked like it was going to be a fantastic matchup, but these teams kind of stink right now, Adam. The Panthers are 1-4. The Saints are coming off a bye, so they're not really anywhere close to the top of the standings right now either. With the Falcons running away, the Saints are 1-3 now, right?
Yeah, the Saints got their first one after the Chargers blew it against them too.
Yeah, so they're 2-7. These 2 teams combined. I didn't see that coming. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean stay away from this game in fantasy. It's the complete opposite, I think.
See this guy? If he plays, Cam dealing with the concussion. Like if he's good to go, you play Cam Newton in cash, and you watch him put up 35 DraftKings points. Pretty much how it's gonna go. Jonathan Stewart's probably gonna be back too, and he's boring, but we like this team has given up over 2 rushing touchdowns per game, and the Saints, Stewart has rushing touchdown upside even with Cam Newton there. Like there's going to be more than enough opportunities for him to score. He's 5,100 on DraftKings. Don't have his price on FanDuel, but it should be relatively cheap. Nobody's going to be thinking of him because he's been hurt the last couple weeks. I don't think he has massive upside in tournaments, but I think he's relatively safe in cash because as long as he's fine, because like running backs have just destroyed the Saints. Greg Olson's the number 1 tight end in fantasy. You can play him if you like scoring fantasy points. Probably play Kelvin Benjamin if you like scoring fantasy points. Even Carolina's defense has been bad. Like wide receiver ones have torched them the last 2 weeks. Brandon Cooks is so much better at home on turf. Like it's insane. If you go back and look at the numbers, he is insanely better at home. We talk about Drew Brees in the home road splits, but Brandon Cooks is obviously benefited from being at home as well. So, I like Brandon Cooks a lot too. Anybody you don't like in this game? Like maybe
I don't think so. I mean, right now, when you initially look at things, a lot of people tend to look at their research and they sort by Vegas over under. Well, this game doesn't have a total yet. Obviously, they're going to be waiting on Cam Newton's status, but my gut says he's going to play, and my gut also says I think this game's going to be a 53 or higher total, and I wouldn't be surprised if it crushes the over because Carolina defense hasn't been good. We know the Saints can't stop anybody. It's on turf. And just to add to your point about Jonathan Stewart, if Cam does play, we know that he's been told by a lot of people to be safer, And that
Yeah,
might mean handing the ball off to a huge running back and Jonathan Stewart inside the 5 rather than having Cam try to run it in because, honestly, Stewart's going to get in against the Saints defense anyway. So I'm with you on Stewart. I think he's an excellent play this week.
Yeah, it's a good call about Cam. His sort of lackadaisical, like he knows he's about to get in the end zone and kind of like I love Cam. Like I'm a major Cam truther, as you can see. Like Cam is my dude, but that's the one thing I hate that he does. The kind of showboating into the end zone. Like, dude, like people already don't like you. Like, just get in the end zone before you get your head taken off.
Yeah, just score. Do whatever you want afterward. Just get there first, please.
Yeah. But yeah, like everybody in play here. On the Carolina side, on the New Orleans side, Breeze is a great play at home, obviously. So yeah, if Cam doesn't play, I guess we should talk about this since it's Tuesday. If Cam doesn't play, he'd still obviously play Derek Anderson at 6,400, and Greg Olsen could go nuts. Like if you watch that game on Monday night, that god awful game, Derek Anderson was forcing Greg Olsen the ball in terrible situations and good situations. It didn't matter. First and goal from the 1, he threw a horrible forced pass to Greg Olsen in the end zone that was picked. But like Olsen obviously had a career game in terms of yardage. Could probably go nuts either way, but yeah, like Olsen, maybe even a little bit more if Cam's not in there.
Yeah, I agree. The weird part about this, like you said, at Tuesday, this is our first glance at this game. We could see Cam Newton, Jonathan Stewart, Kelvin Benjamin, and Greg Olsen. Or we could see the other way of Derek Anderson, Fozzie Whitaker, Cameron Artis-Payne, and Greg Olsen, Kelvin Benjamin. So it could go either way. But regardless, I think whoever plays in this game is an excellent guy to target, no matter who it is. The only person I would maybe stay away from would be Mark Ingram, because it could get one of those games where both teams are just passing back and forth, that Ingram kind of going to be left out a little bit.
I got to see Ingram get more red zone usage.
Exactly.
It's so annoying.
Yeah, that's the one thing, is especially running backs now.
Here's a question:
format, you're going to be able to find the point. So,
dude, John Kuhn is 3,100. That's all I'm saying.
Who is this?
John Kuhn.
I would never do it.
Do not play John Kuhn.
I would never do it, but he scored 3 in a game, so I don't know. You know, someone's going to win the Millie with John Kuhn. It's just
dude,
kind of season.
Someone's going to play him. Dan Tuttle from Fantasy Insiders was tweeting a cash game lineup he had. Somebody played Mike Gillisley against him yesterday or Sunday. Like, what the and he lost. Like Tuttle lost, he said. It was just one of those weeks where, like, the guys he played felt like it was somebody's gonna play John Kuhn.
Yeah, somebody will. For their sake, I hope he scores 3 touchdowns. And I would just love to see a great lineup with him in it. How fun would that be?
Yeah.
This next game here is, we talked about the Patriots offense, but Adam, the Steelers against the Dolphins. I just click on Roethlisberger, click on Bell, click on Brown, click on Coates, click on James, click on the Steelers defense, click on Casey Hampton, Willie Parker, Amos Zaraway. Anybody that ever played for the Steelers, click on them and put them in your lineup this week. You agree?
Yes. Yeah, Big Ben, home road splits, whatever. I don't care. This is a dream spot. The Dolphins are pathetic. They let Mariota go nuts, and Mariota's been brutal other than last week. Like you saw it last week, the Jets got 0 pressure on Ben Roethlisberger. According to PFF, he saw 0 pressure on 83% of his dropbacks. 83. And Miami, 20th in sack rate at 5.3%, not generating a ton of pressure. The Steelers offense should go nuts. Le'Veon Bell could have like one of the greatest fantasy games ever. I'm not even exaggerating. So the dude has not scored a touchdown yet, and he's scored 25.8 and 24.4 DraftKings points. So that tells me he has arguably the highest floor in fantasy right now. 14 receptions on 17 targets through 2 weeks. He's 21st in pass routes over the last 2 weeks, not among running backs, among anyone. I think I saw a stat that during that span, he's only run 6 fewer pass routes than Antonio Brown. Like, that's insane.
That's unbelievable.
Like, what kind of floor is that? Like, he ran 45 pass routes last week. Miami's terrible, allowing the most rushing yards per game at 150.8. Second most rushing first downs per game, so you know the Steelers are going to generate long drives. No team in the NFL is allowing more rushing attempts per game than the Dolphins at 36. Steelers are 7-point favorites. Le'Veon Bell, top running back play this slate, not even close. And I love David Johnson and LaShawn McCoy, but I don't even think it's close. And then the receivers, Antonio Brown is GOAT. Sammy Coates, obviously had the big game and stuff, but 19 targets over the last 2 games, nothing to scoff at. He's the Martavis Bryant in this offense. 40-yard catch in every single game this season. Ben Roethlisberger second in 20 and 40-yard passing attempts behind Matt Ryan so far this season, so they're going to take their shots. Miami did sign Bené Ben-Wickery, who was just cut after Julio Jones massacred him. I would love to see Antonio Brown massacre him, and then Miami cuts him. But the Steelers fire up your Steelers in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about before 2 weeks ago that even when the Steelers are up or down big, Tomlin keeps his guys in. Gio Hernandez, who was on with us last week, said that Mike Tomlin is the greatest fantasy football head coach ever, and it's hard to agree with him because all these guys play. Like you said, Antonio Brown has run 6 more routes than Le'Veon Bell, which that stat is just – that blows my mind. And that's not even an indictment on Brown. He's still running a ton of routes. It just means that that's how many routes Le'Veon Bell has run. He's actually the highest rated running back right now on the RC Premium cheat sheet, the highest rated player. And I can honestly say it's the highest rating I've ever seen in that rating. So definitely it's a great play this week. He is the chalk. And on DraftKings, his price didn't jump up as much as I thought it would. It's still just barely.
You got to play him until he gets to that point where he's like 9K. You have to play him. Yeah. I don't care who he's playing. You saw last week, he was 7,500 still against the Jets. Did not do much on the ground, but had 9 catches because he's running routes at an insane rate, and he's really freaking good at football. So at 7,900, that's still a bargain. You have to keep playing him. The only guy I like on the Dolphins is Jarvis Landry. This could be the most Jarvis Landry game ever. This could be like a 13-catch, 80-yard Jarvis Landry game. They're going to be behind. The Steelers are literally backing off in coverage, not giving you the deep playing back in that zone coverage. So Landry, double-digit targets in 8 of his last 9 games. Saw that streak end last week. Probably going to see 12 to 15 targets this game. The Steelers are allowing the second most receptions per game to opposing receivers. No team has allowed more receiving yards since the start of 2015 than Pittsburgh. So Landry could have a really, really nice PPR game. Probably the only guy I like on Pittsburgh. Tannehill is just really bad. I don't want to play Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I agree with you on Landry. It's an excellent point. Like you said, even if the Steelers are up big, which we anticipate, they'll still even more so play that deep cover 4 defense and just let everything drop in front of you. We saw the Tampa Bay Bucks do it for years in that Tampa 2 defense. It works when you have a lead, and that's exactly what the Steelers are looking like doing.
Yeah.
This next game, Jacksonville at Chicago. I'm just going to tell you how this game's going to go. I think we both know. 0-0 at halftime because of how bad Hoyer and Bortles are in the first half. And then both of them somehow will each have 3 garbage time touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Both of them will end up over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I know we mentioned garbage time for both of them, and that's exactly what they do. But, hey, they count in DFS. They count in fantasy. So I think both of these quarterbacks are in play. Both of these number 1 receivers and Allen Robinson, Alshon Jeffrey are in play. I even like Zach Miller at tight end. I just think this is a game that is going to be under-owned because a lot of people are going to be looking at Carolina, New Orleans, and Pittsburgh. And they're going to forget about this game, which would be well over 60 points, I think.
Yeah, looking at Pro Football Reference, both of these teams trail about 60% of the time in games. So, yeah, Brian Hoyer, man, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 picks in 3 straight games. And he's not even throwing to the best receiver in their offense. So, yeah, go figure. It's small sample size because he only started 3 games, but leads the NFL in completion percentage. So, he's been kind of good, and he's not throwing to Alshon Jeffrey. So, still under 6K. Jacksonville secondary, I think, is going to get Amukamara and some others back, but still, the Bears are we think of the Bears last year, they were a super run-heavy team. They're calling pass 66.3% of the time, the 5th highest rate in the NFL. So, like Brian Hoyer, Jordan Howard is a man. He's legit, man. 2 straight 100-yard rushing games. During that span, he's you look at his price tag, I know people are going to see it creeping up and get a little worried. He's 6,200, but he should be priced kind of more, probably higher because during that span, 90% of all running back touches in Chicago he's handling. 93% of the snaps he's playing. Dude has looked really good. He forced 7 missed tackles on 16 carries last week. I'm still into Jordan Howard for sure. There's nobody else there. And then Alshon Jeffrey is probably my favorite tournament play this slate. He's been underperforming because of targets. He's only seen his highest number of targets this season in a game is 7. It's so ridiculous, but he's still averaging 18 yards per catch. So, like, he's giving you like 70 yards a game at least, despite not seeing a heavy usage. So if he sees 10 to 12 targets in a squeaky wheel kind of situation, he could go nuts. Like, I love Alshon Jeffrey in tournaments. And like, I know it's not a good spot for big play potential. Like, Jacksonville has allowed the second lowest yards per completion this season very quietly. But we know the Bears are throwing the football a lot. We know Alshon Jeffrey is an immense talent. His price is all the way down to 7,100. People are going to be off of him. If he gets, like, we've seen the squeaky wheel theory, like, come to fruition. People complain about not getting involved, and the next week they get 12 to 15 targets. If Alshon sees 15 targets in a game, he's going to go nuts. And I'm probably going to play Alshon until that happens because a big game is coming. Like, he's too talented. This isn't a scary matchup by any means. So I think Alshon Jeffrey might be my favorite tournament play the entire slate.
Yeah, I'm with you on Alshon this week. Those target numbers are low, and that does bother me a little bit, but that just means that his ownership percentage is going to be low. You know, this is the type of game flow where he could thrive. And you mentioned that stat. Both of these teams are trailing 60% of the time. I know it's mathematically impossible, but I still think it could happen. That's just how bad these teams have been in the first half.
Yeah. And then for Jacksonville, little interest in Bortles. Like, Chicago's defense, for as much as we want to pick on it, like, with the injuries, they've been literally like average. Like, they haven't been like bad like we want them to be. So they do have Danny Trevathan back. But you know Bortles is going to get his garbage time numbers or whatever numbers he gets. They don't have anybody to cover Allen Robinson, so I'm fine with Bortles.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be one of those games that goes 2 under owned, which is excellent in tournaments. I know our own DFS pro, Brian Healy, loves targeting this Jacksonville offense and Jacksonville defense on the other side, so he likes the Bears this week. So I'm interested to see what he thinks. This next game here is going to be a lot of fun, I think. San Francisco 49ers just announced that Colin Kaepernick will start this week. So it's going to be Colin Kaepernick against Adam's favorite player in the history of sports, and Tyrod Taylor. So this is going to be very fun between two athletic quarterbacks. The rest of this game, though, I think there's some interesting plays. We talked about Carlos Hyde last couple of weeks. He's still an excellent play. LaShawn McCoy might be my favorite running back play this week if there wasn't a thing called Le'Veon Bell.
I'm trying to flex right now if anybody's wondering.
So yeah, this game's another
LaShawn
good one.
Impression.
This is another – I don't know if I can – no. I'll let you flex. I can't do it. So yeah, this game, everybody again, I think, especially the quarterbacks being at their price. I really like the running backs on both sides as well. What do you think?
Yeah, so LaShawn McCoy and DeMarco Murray are looking like vintage versions of themselves this year. It's been fun to watch. McCoy looks incredible. 330 rushing yards the last 3 games. He's now 4th in rushing and scrimmage yards, averaging over 108 total yards per game. Buffalo's calling run 47% of the time, the 4th highest clip in football. And now you get the San Francisco defense that has been a sieve against the run, allowing 146.8 yards per game. They're getting torched. The last 4 number 1 backs to face them have scored 100 yards and a touchdown. Not or a touchdown, and a touchdown. You have David Johnson on Thursday night, destroyed them. Zeke Elliott torched them last week. Christine Michael the week before. Actually, it is or a touchdown. I lied because I forgot Fozzie Whitaker didn't score. But still, Fozzie Whitaker had his first career 100-yard game ever, even in high school or college. It was his first career 100-yard game against the Niners. So, yeah, I think LaShawn McCoy's a little better than him. McCoy's been incredible. Plus, you get the San Francisco usage bump. The opposing offense is averaging 68.4 plays per game, the 4th most in the league because of Chip Kelly's pace. I love LaShawn McCoy. He's 6,900. He should be more expensive. So, play LaShawn McCoy. He's going to be in so many of my lineups. Tyrod Taylor, 5,300. I talked about this on Twitter the other day. Like, he's not giving you 30 because of the volume, but he's 5,300 and is giving you 15.7, 16.4, and 17.3 DraftKings points over the last 3 games, and he's averaging less than 30 pass attempts per game. Like, that's fine for me. Like, in cash, like, at 5,300, I'm fine with that. Plus, he's giving you over 5 rushing attempts per game with the ability to run it in. So I'm fine with Tyrod Taylor. I actually more than fine with him. I like him a lot, especially at that price. Robert Woods is 4,200. Is getting a lot of targets now with Watkins hurt. He's seen 16 targets for the last 2 games. Had a touchdown called back last week against the Rams. And wide receiver ones, I know Robert Woods is a traditional wide receiver one, but opposing top options in a passing game have had a lot of success against the Niners too. You saw Larry Fitzgerald on Thursday night. You saw Bryce Butler, who was serving as their kind of number one, or Terrence Williams. They both scored against the Niners. And then Doug Baldwin in week 3, Kelvin Benjamin in week 2. So they struggled against number one guys. So I don't mind Robert Woods at 4,200. So I like the Bills. The Bills defense is fine. So I guess we got to talk about the Niners and Colin Kaepernick. Minimum salary rushing quarterback is Colin Kaepernick. What do you think about Kaepernick?
I'm definitely going to have at least one share of him this weekend. 5K, he really only needs 15 to return great value at his price. We're talking about using guys closer to 8,000, and you're expecting 24 to 30 from them. So at the same ratio,
he could have a really nice rushing floor. Evan Silva just tweeted something that I favorited, which is really kind of going to play into my kind of analysis this week on Kaepernick. So Blaine Gabbert, while he was the starting quarterback, led all quarterbacks in rushing attempts and rushing yards. And in the preseason, Kaepernick had 8 rushes for 56 yards. So they're going to want to run. He's going to run. And he's going to have volume. I mean, you look at this Niners offense right now. They're on the field a lot. Obviously, they generate a lot of plays. So Kaepernick at 5K, I don't think he has a lot of good passing upside here. Other than the Jets game, really, Buffalo's secondary has been good, which is why I kind of like Carlos Hyde. Actually, scratch that. I really like Carlos Hyde. Can you explain to me why Carlos Hyde, who has been one of the best running backs in fantasy this season, is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th on the slate in fantasy points per game, and he's 5,100? The dude leads the NFL in rushing. The dude leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Is 8th in yards, 9th in yards per game, and he's 5,100.
I think what happened was when the pricing algorithm went through, somebody hit the wrong button. They hit 5 instead of 6 or 7 because
that's the only thing I can think of, dude. Yeah, because
he's been too good for that salary, just flat out.
75% of Buffalo's touchdowns allowed this season have come on the ground, the highest rate in the league. They're not giving up passing touchdowns. They're giving up passing yardage, but not passing touchdowns. Hyde is super involved. He's involved in garbage time, which we didn't think was going to happen, which is huge for his value. I mean, he caught 6 passes last week against the Cardinals in garbage and come from behind effort. He's got 13 catches on the year. He's now a guy who is kind of starting to be game script proof, and that's huge for him. And this is a decent matchup. Buffalo's not great against the run; they're not terrible. And Carlos Hyde leads the NFL in rushing attempts inside the 20-yard line. He is inside the top. He's 2nd in rushing attempts inside the 10. Carlos Hyde 5,100. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I also like Kaepernick as well, just because of the fact that Chip Kelly and this offense has run a lot of read option plays. We've seen Gabbert keep a lot. He leads the NFL in red zone carries by a quarterback as well. So that's going to go up with Colin Kaepernick. So I think both of those rushers there and both of the rushers on the other side and Taylor McCoy are in play.
How many rushing yards do you think both quarterbacks and running backs are going to combine for in this game? It could be an insane amount.
I'm going to say over 375 total between the two teams, I think, honestly. I really believe that.
McCoy's getting 300 by himself, so it's a little low. McCoy's going to go nuts. He's the nuts this week.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I think we should make some kind of a side bet on that. I do think that 400 yards can be attained in total rushing yards between both these.
Yeah. And I want to look at I want to find a percentage of blitzes teams run, because I love targeting running quarterbacks against the Cardinals because they blitz more than any team in the league, and that obviously sets up better, the quarterback can step up in the pocket, and there's just a bunch of room to get a 10, 15-yard gain. We saw it with Blaine Gabbert on Thursday night. So if these teams both blitz a lot, there could be even more rushing totals. Look at the last 2 weeks for Blaine Gabbert, 22 rushing attempts. Like if Kaepernick runs as much as that, he could easily exceed value at 5K.
Oh, easily. Yeah, it's too good of an athlete with all that volume to be ignored. That's for sure. The
All
next
right, enough
game
of
we
this game.
have on the slate here, Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions. Right now, it's the lowest over/under at 43.5. We know about the Lions with Theo Riddick, and as Adam just mentioned, they're planning on signing Justin Forsett. So that basically, to me, looks like that Dwayne Washington's going to be out for quite a while. So we know that Riddick's going to be the guy. Zach Zenner saw some carries. So for me, the only person in this game I'm targeting is Riddick. You've heard me talk about a million times on RC Live or on our shows here, or even on the Daily Beefs, on how much I love targeting pass-catching backs against a good defensive line. That's exactly what the Rams have. You know they're going to get pressure on them. So for me, I really like a guy that Stafford can dump the ball off to, and that really fits the profile for Riddick. That's exactly what he's good at. That's exactly what the Lions are going to do. So for me, I think this is a perfect spot for Theo Riddick. What are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, I don't like anybody in this game other than maybe Riddick, and I'll probably throw a term lineup with Marvin there just out of respect. Um, yeah, like Todd Gurley continues to like be super inefficient, and if Benny Cunningham's back, oh, there goes your passing game. Like maybe, like there was some talk out of LA that the Rams are going to use Gurley as a passing option more, which would be nice. I mean, because he can't run the ball very well. Gurley could be interesting in tournaments. The Lions have struggled against the run a little bit, not in terms of fantasy production, but in terms of yards per attempt. It depends on if they have Zeke Ansah and DeAndre Levy back, honestly. But I don't know. There's a lot of running backs I like this week. Like 6,700 for Gurley or 6,200 for Howard. I'm going to go Howard. I'd rather have Christian Michael for 100 more. So yeah, Todd Gurley's kind of rough. But yeah, Riddick should be in a decent spot. But other than that, this isn't a game I really looked at when I saw the slate and was excited to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. So let's move on to this next game. Cleveland Browns at the Tennessee Titans. We know about the quarterbacks against the Cleveland Browns. We've talked about it for a while. So, Adam, why don't you take that away? I know Mariota is your boy, so I'll let you take this side of the game.
I'm gonna be all over Mariota, and he's gonna let me down. It's gonna happen. But I'm willing to take the chance against Cleveland. 19 or 19 of the last 21 quarterbacks to face him have thrown at least 2 touchdown passes. Brady just lit them a new one. I think he just threw another touchdown pass while I was speaking, probably to Martellus Bennett. So like Mariota, who the Titans offense quietly has had season high production the last 2 weeks. He's running a lot. He had 8 rushes for 6 yards and a touchdown last week. Like that's the appeal for me with Mariota, and they're letting him run more because Mike Mularkey wanted to do that since last season. We saw him do that with Cordell Stewart in Pittsburgh. He talked about that in the offseason, how he would kind of look at that similarly and try to use Mariota in that role. But yeah, Cleveland's just so bad that at 6,100, Mariota could easily have a nice game. So I'm going to have some interest for sure. And DeMarco Murray, speaking of high floors, you can play him. I mean, he's been outstanding. 100 scrimmage yards in every game this season except for week 1. He's just been incredible. 5 yards per carry so far this season. Cleveland's terrible. You can play DeMarco Murray for sure. It looks like the Tajay Sharp dream is dead. Like he's just not involved. 4 targets last week on just 2 catches. Has only seen 1 double-digit target game. So I think it's kind of Mariota, Murray, and maybe some Delaney Walker. Yeah, definitely some Delaney Walker, actually. Cleveland's 32nd against tight ends. And Walker looks to be healthier now, so.
Yeah, I'm with you on all 3 of those guys. It could be an interesting week to stack. I know a lot of people don't like to use the quarterback, running back, and receiver in a stack, but the way that the Titans offense runs with DeMarco Murray getting a lot of targets, it might not be a bad option to go with all 3 of them. You still have room to fill in that wide receiver for any of the guys you may like. On the other side of this game, the only player I would even remotely consider for Cleveland is Terrell Pryor, because we know Cody Kessler's banged up, and if they have anybody else at quarterback, regardless of who they sign, regardless of who starts.
I think Kessel's expected to start again because they just waived
Okay.
Charlie Whitehurst.
Okay, there you go. So I still like Terrell Pryor because he's the only guy on this offense basically right now. And I think you're going to see more and more of him at quarterback because the Browns have to figure something out. I mean, Isaiah Crowell did nothing last week, and he was really the only bright spot for that offense. So for me, Pryor is the only way to look at it for Cleveland. For Tennessee, I do like those three big guys in Mariota, DeMarco Murray, and of course, Delaney Walker.
Yeah, I agree.
This next game here is going to be a lot of fun in many different reasons. DFS reasons, we're going to see Philadelphia and the Redskins, a lot of things there. Also, the big implications for the NFC East. Now, I hate to say in week 6, you're going to see a game that is a must-win for both teams. But if you look at who the NFC East plays this year in the schedule, if the Eagles lose this game, they have a lot of tough games up ahead of them. They could fall to behind 500 awfully quick. We know about the Redskins middling around 500 as well. So this will be a fun game. The way I want to talk about this game, we know the Redskins can't stop the run, so Ryan Matthews could be in play. Darren Sproles could be in play. But I want to talk about Jordan Reed here, and I want to use a stat that you brought up each and every week about how Jordan Reed lines up. The Eagles this season against tight ends have only allowed 6 catches for 43 yards. That is unbelievable. But DPP can be misleading, and in this case, that's where it holds true because Jordan Reed does line up close to 50% of the snaps. So, Adam, I want you to tell everybody why the DPP does not matter necessarily in this particular case, meaning Jordan Reed as a tight end against the Eagles.
Yeah, Jordan Reed's like a wide receiver, dude. Like they don't ask him to block ever. They don't want him to block. That's why they have Vernon Davis, who's, not good at blocking, but he's not Jordan Reed, so they don't care. He lines up in the slot like 47% of the time. They line up out wide a lot too. So, like, if you got Jordan Reed against these corners, like, it's still a good matchup for him. Like, McKelvin got hurt again. Jalen Mills is bad. Ron Brooks is not very good. Like, they don't have anybody to cover Jordan Reed. So, if people see, like, this is a great spot in tournaments to kind of see, oh, no, the Eagles are number 1 against tight ends. They have defended all tight ends very well. Tight ends aren't doing much against them. But, like, that's what the common people, like, the novices will say. But, like, if you're really looking into this stuff, you're going to see Jordan Reed as a bona fide slot receiver. He winds up out wide a lot. His red zone usage is going up. And it's a good matchup for him against these corners. So, like, I talk about wide receiver ones against the Eagles all the time. They produce. Saw Marvin Jones score against them last week. Jordan Reed is kind of like that wide receiver 1 in this spot. So I love Jordan Reed in tournaments. I hope people are off him because it's a good spot. I don't care. Like, and even if, like, you think Kendricks is going to cover him in coverage, even if he is, like, in the game? Like, no.
Yeah, and in some way that the Eagles have used their safeties is coming down to cover Jordan Reed. But although Malcolm Jenkins is excellent, he does not match up well with Jordan Reed. The guy is massive. He's shifty. He has a huge catch radius, and Jenkins is not a large safety. So I think this is a perfect spot for Jordan Reed. We've seen it before. We've seen him have success against the Eagles. So I think this is an excellent spot for him in tournaments. And I'm with you. I really, really hope he's low owned. I'll be interested to see those fantasy aces ownership rates on Thursday night on RotoCurve because if he's low owned, especially under 10%, I'm going to be using him a lot in tournaments on Sunday.
What do you think about Ryan Matthews? There was reports that coming off the injury, he was pretty much close to 100%, and Peterson said he would be the lead back. And that was essentially true. Kenyon Barner and Wendell Smallwood, I think, played a combined 2 snaps, 1 apiece. So Matthews didn't see I think Darren Sproles still played more snaps than him, but Matthews is like the clear-cut red zone guy, and especially inside the 10 and 5. Like he's missed a lot of snaps and time. He still leads the NFL in red zone and rushing attempts inside the 5. He's 4th in red zone attempts inside the 10. So against a team that's allowed 1.6 rushing touchdowns per game, only the Saints are worse. They've been one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. Ryan Matthews could have more like a 50-yard, 2-touchdown game here. It wouldn't surprise me. And he's under 5K on DraftKings. Do you worry about that last-minute fumble at all or anything in terms of playing time?
I don't think so. Doug Peterson came out and said that will not define him, that will not define their season. So I don't think it's going to be an issue where he gets benched or punished for that fumble. He knows he was wrong. He knows that it potentially cost the Eagles a chance for a win, although there were many other things in that game that was the real reason why they lost. The thing is with me for Matthews is, though, last week a lot of people will look at Darren Sproles' work. We got to remember the Eagles couldn't stop the Lions at all for the first couple of drives, and they were down 21-0 in a hurry.
Yeah.
21-7 either way. So the one thing to look at that is that game flow is more than likely to be true for Sproles when they're down by a lot. Against the Redskins, I don't see that happening as much, so Matthews could get a lot of the work. And he did look good with that fumble. He didn't look like he was injured. He was getting 4 or 5 yards.
It was weird. Like at one point, he was their leading receiver out of the backfield, and Sproles was their leading rusher, which is obviously
that's weird.
Wouldn't think it would be, but I like Matthews a good amount. What do you think about the quarterbacks in this spot?
I don't like Cousins. I don't like Cousins at all because I think the Eagles will be able to get pressure on them, and we know this guy struggles under pressure. Wentz, I don't mind Wentz, but my issue with Wentz is he's in that price range where I would rather use other guys. So maybe he is a lower end tournament play, but for me, I'm going to be looking at other quarterbacks in that same price range that are just going to flat out throw the ball more times. And that's the way I'm looking at it, really.
Yeah, Wentz is 6K. I'd rather have Mariota at 6'1". I'd rather have Bortles at 6'3". If Cam Newton somehow doesn't play, I'd rather have Anderson for 6'4" against the Saints. I'd rather have Brian Hoyer at 5'8". I'd rather have Alex Smith at 5'7", who I like a lot. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it with Wentz too. I'm fine with Wentz. Like he's been awesome this year. But there's again similar to Eli, there's just guys I like more.
Exactly, and that's a big thing in DFS for newer players. Even though you may like a specific player, it's all relative to price, as Adam just mentioned. Carson Wentz for a certain price, for $100 more, maybe $200 more, or even $100 less. If you like a guy much more, that's a way to use it, and you can use those extra couple $100 and other spots to help you benefit. Let's look at the next game here. Adam just alluded to Alex Smith being an excellent play here, and I got to agree. Kansas City at Oakland. This game right now is the highest over-under on the slate. We're still waiting on the Saints-Panthers. But this is the highest over-under right now at 49. They're expected to be 7 touchdowns in this game. So I want a piece of both offenses. Before I give the reins to you for this game, Adam, Jamal Charles to me, 5,100. I really have a hunch that this is going to be the week he sees the bulk of the carries coming off a bye. We know about Andy Reid off a bye. I think there was an excellent chance to get him a few carries before the bye to give them a chance to succeed to kind of get his legs back in the thing. But this week, I really think Jamal Charles is going to see a huge uptick in usage. 5,100 on DraftKings, I got to take advantage of that every time.
So I'm on Jamal Charles' Roto-World page right now. The Kansas City Star had a report. So Jamal Charles on October 3rd said his knee said he is 100%. He also confirmed that he was going to sit that Sunday night game against Pittsburgh, but Sharkhandrick West was ruled inactive. So Charles is essentially an emergency kind of guy. Get his feet give him 10 snaps, whatever. So he only played 11 snaps. He got the entire bye week to rest. He is 5,100 against the Raiders, and I'm playing him everywhere.
He literally is a free square for me this week, especially if we hear that he's going to be the main back. I don't see why he wouldn't be. And
even if he's not, exactly. he's arguably the most efficient running back in the history of football. If he only needs at 5,100, he only needs 15 touches against the Raiders.
You remember 2 years ago, the game against the Raiders he had in the passing game?
Yeah.
Where he ended up having 4 total touchdowns? I mean, it's a different team now, but it just tells you how efficient he can be.
This game is a chock full of value on the Chiefs side. I like Alex Smith a lot. 5,700. Oakland's allowed the 4th highest passer rating, the 3rd most fantasy points, the 2nd most yards per attempt. And Smith had 2 touchdowns in both games against Oakland last year, averaged over 40 rushing yards per game during that span. Alex Smith, I think Macklin gets on track at 5,700. And we know Andy Reid is so good off the bye, especially coming off that monster loss. I think Andy Reid's 15-2 after the bye. Or something crazy like that. So I like the Chiefs a lot in this spot. I like Kelsey a lot. It's good to see he's getting red zone usage. That's the biggest thing with Travis Kelsey.
Finally, right? Finally.
So Travis Kelsey right now in terms of red zone usage, something that we haven't really seen from him in the past. In terms of red zone targets, he's only behind Brandon Marshall, Jordy Nelson, Emmanuel Sanders, and Jamison Crowder. That's it. So I love Kelsey. I think this is the week Macklin gets on track. He's still seeing a good amount of targets. So I'm all aboard the Chiefs offense here. And this game is the only thing that would make this game even better for them is if it was an Arrowhead, but still great spot for these Chiefs guys. None of them are expensive. So a lot of Chiefs for me this week. What about the Oakland side? I'm not really interested in too much. I know Amari Cooper had 7 touchdowns and only 1 counted last week, but
Yeah, that was crazy to watch. Crazy.
that was probably the most tilting 10 minutes of DFS because
Oh,
first it
brutal.
wasn't a touchdown. People were like, "Oh man." Then it was about to be a touchdown, and clearly it was a complete pass. Then they were sitting there for 10 minutes talking about it, only to say it was incomplete. Like, it was hilarious.
Yeah, he honestly had about 35 fantasy points that didn't count. It was one of the
Yeah,
craziest games
like
I've
he
ever seen.
literally caught 4 passes in the end zone. Just
Yes,
his
yep,
foot wasn't in
exactly.
the once 2 times. It was nuts.
Yeah, that was crazy. As for the Raiders, I do like Michael Crabtree a lot this week. I
Yeah,
think,
that goes without saying. He's goat.
yeah, exactly. He's going to line up on the side with Marcus Peters, I think. And a lot of people will say, look at Peters. Wow, what an excellent corner, all those interceptions. The guy gives up catches, he gives up yards, and he gives up touchdowns. We know that Michael Crabtree's way is going to be the way to go in the end zone. Derek Carr loves targeting this guy in the red zone. We've seen it inside the 5, inside the 10. We saw it on a 4th and 2 play. Jack Del Rio, this guy has complete stones of steel because 4th and 2, we threw a deep pass on a fade to Michael Crabtree, and just looked at his face. He was just like,
Yeah,
he just knew that it was going to be a
Crabtree's
touchdown.
awesome, dude.
So, yeah, Crabtree this week, I do think it's in play. You've mentioned his floor 5 weeks in a row, so I think his floor is there. We know of his ceiling. Just had 3 touchdowns against the Ravens, so he's in play for me. And like you said, Adam, everybody for the Chiefs offense, but for me especially, you gotta have Jamal Charles. Have to.
Yeah.
Have to.
Michael Crabtree, 80 yards or a touchdown in every game this season so far.
Exactly, and he's averaging me way over that too with the big game too. So I just think that he's in a great spot along with Charles. This could be a sneaky game as well.
Yeah.
This next game here is I know
For sure.
100% for a fact I will be sitting down and watching this game. Problem is, I don't know where it's going to happen. For those of you that don't know, I'm getting married on Saturday, so Sunday on the honeymoon might be tough to convince the newly wed wife to let me watch football, but you know, sometimes you got to compromise when you're married, right? So, yeah, hopefully this game I get a chance to watch because Atlanta at Seattle is going to be a lot of fun. Richard Sherman, Julio Jones, an excellent offense this year, number 1 offense in a variety of numbers in the Falcons against the number 1 defense in the NFL, not counting the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. So, for me, the best offense against arguably the best defense at home, I want to stay away from it from DFS perspectives, but we just saw Atlanta do it to one of the best defenses we've seen. So what do you think, Adam? Are you targeting anybody for the Atlanta Falcons? And then if not, who are you looking at on the other side?
I'm probably going to be off the Falcons again, which is kind of risky because their offense has been so good. I would actually think Julio Jones would be really sneaky in the spot. Like Brandon Marshall sunned Richard Sherman for the first half of that Jets game. But here's the thing. Ryan Fitzpatrick, with no Eric Decker, is not afraid to just force feed a guy against a good corner. Matt Ryan kind of is. We've seen him not throw to Julio in good spots, so that's why I'm kind of off Julio. I don't think there's a need to play Matt Ryan in Seattle. The only guy in this game I like on the Atlanta side potentially is Tevin Coleman, just because after last week, they're going to want to use him in the passing game, and he's still going to get a lot of run. But I probably won't because his ownership might be it'll be mid range, I think. But the Seattle side, I love Christine Michael. It's going to be the lead back again. 22 and 23 touches the last 2 weeks. Scored a receiving touchdown against the Jets, 5 receptions. Really bad against running backs. Bottom 5 in fantasy points per game allowed. Their linebackers are terrible, so Christine Michael could have a really nice game. Russell Wilson gets rest off the bye. The ankle can heal and the knee can heal. And we know Atlanta's defense is really not good. I know they got a nice pass rush last week, but this is still a bad defense. So Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin absolutely in play for me, especially at home. This game, kind of like the little big 3 there. And Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham's back, man. He's been awesome.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite stack of the entire slate to this point. Now, I know things could change as it is only Tuesday, but I highly doubt it. I know I'm going to have in tournament lineups a ton of Russell Wilson, a ton of Doug Baldwin, and I absolutely love Jimmy Graham this week as well. A lot of people, I think, may be off Baldwin because of Desmond Trufant. If Trufant doesn't shadow him, which I think could be the case, he's going to be on the Tyler Lockett's, the Jermaine Curses, or maybe even how they had Seattle have their wide receivers or their running backs line up, but wide receivers a lot too. So the way that I look at this game, I think Baldwin in the slot is going to do a lot of good work. I love Jimmy Graham, and like I just said, those three guys is a big stack for me, and I really like all three of them in tournaments, even together, which I know a lot of people don't like to play two of the same receivers, but I think Seattle has a chance to score a ton of points this week, and I want a piece of that.
Yeah, I like the Seattle guys for sure.
3 games left. Let's go to Dallas at the Green Bay Packers, between two of the best teams in the NFC, which I didn't think we would see, but Dak Prescott has been incredible. A lot of good quarterbacks in the NFC. These have been two of the guys that we thought would be playing the best football. Problem is, Adam, I don't think it's a stretch to say Dak has played better than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I know it sounds bold because of who it is, but Aaron Rodgers has been really bad. Yards per attempt have been lower than everyone except for Blaine Gabbert and Joe Flacco. I saw on a stat last night. So Rodgers hasn't been playing very well. The Green Bay offense did look good in the first couple drives, but they kind of fell off after that. Eddie Lacy got hurt. So for me in this game, the only person I would look at would be Zeke. But the Packers are unbelievable against the run. So I don't know what I'm going to look at in this game, really.
Yeah, so I saw a graphic during the Sunday night broadcast that almost 30% of the rushes against Green Bay this season have gone for 0 or negative yards. But the problem is they faced 4 of the worst rushing offenses in the league in Jacksonville, Minnesota, Detroit, and who's the other team I'm missing? The Giants. So it's not even just been that though. If you watch the games, Mike Daniels and those guys have been in the backfield on every play, but they're facing the best offensive line in the NFL that's just pushing guys around. So I think Zeke's still in play. I mean, you look at his game log; he's getting better each and every snap. It seems like, and obviously each and every week, you can't deny that usage. So I don't really think Zeke is ever not going to be in play, and he's never highly owned for some reason. So I'm not really going to be scared of Zeke. I'm not rushing him in my lineups in Green Bay against the Packers, but I'm not scared of him either. And then, for the pass catching side of the things for Dallas, we kind of got to wait and see what the cornerback situation is looking like for Green Bay. Sam Shields, there was a report that he from the concussion. We'll see if Demarius Randall, who's been struggling, but he'll probably be a lot better if Sam Shields is in there on the opposite side of him. On the Packers side, I mean, Rodgers didn't play. He's at home. People might be off him a little bit. I know playing guys against Dallas isn't really the greatest of things because they play keep away so much, but Jordy Nelson has been outstanding. I'm fine with Jordy. I think that's and then I guess we got to see if Lacy's okay with the ankle, because if he can't play, James Stark is sitting at 3,400 on DraftKings, and they don't really have any other running backs on their roster right now.
Yeah, if Lacy's out, James Starks is going to be one of those cash game guys just because of the volume and the price. I agree. Mm-hmm. But for me, I think, like you said, Zeke would have been the only guy in play on the Dallas side, but that matchup is poor. But I'm glad you mentioned the guys he's played against, because that could skew him, skew his ownership, skew people.
Like Minnesota can't run block. The Giants have no running game. Jacksonville had no running game with Yeldon, who averaged 1 yard per carry. And Detroit hasn't been able to run the ball since 2014. So,
yeah, that's exactly why you have to dig into the numbers, like Adam always says, because some things can be misleading on a small sample size in the NFL. So excellent point there on Zeke. That basically confirms that he should be a good play again. My only question for you before we move on to the last 2 games, Adam, would you consider Zeke a good pivot for Le'Veon Bell, or is this just one of those times where you have to play Bell? Because I know their salaries are very similar on other sites other than DraftKings.
Yeah. He is an interesting pivot because we've seen the upside. He has over 150 total yards in 3 straight games now. Le'Veon's ownership compared to Zeke's ownership, I would imagine to be a very large gap. So yeah, I mean, Dallas is going to run the ball as much as anybody in the NFL. I believe they lead the league in rushing play percentage. So yeah, he's an interesting pivot, I think. 7K is still not breaking the bank. And even so, you have people, Christine Michaels in a great spot is just a couple $100 cheaper. So Zeke's kind of priced in that spot where he's not the highest price guy. He's not mid-tier. He's not really cheap, obviously. So, he's going to be interesting in tournaments again.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Zeke as a pivot from Elliott, or Zeke pivot from Elliott, that would be a good thing. Zeke as a pivot from Le'Veon Bell. I don't know if I could do it because I still think bottom line Le'Veon Bell scores more points. But like you said,
Yeah,
on non PPR sites like FanDuel, with just a half a point PPR, you're not losing that much in terms of PPR points between Elliott and Le'Veon Bell. So the chances of Elliott seeing 150 yards and a touchdown, and the chances of Bell seeing 150 yards and a touchdown, in a total scheme of things, are pretty close. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to go as a pivot from there. But in PPR sites, I just think Bell is by far the better play.
yeah, like even on FanDuel and half PPR, Le'Veon's floor is probably 6 or 7 catches every week. So like it's still like like whereas like I don't know like a Mark Ingram or someone like they'll catch 3 balls every other week or whatever, but Le'Veon legitimately is probably going to catch at least 6 or 7 every single week.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned the stat, the crazy stat, actually, of all the pass routes he's run. So there's 2 games left: Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football. Sunday Night Football, knowing sometimes you have to miss things because things are going on. I'm glad this week, really. I mean, Indianapolis against Houston should not be a very good game. Brock Osweiler has been terrible. Now, I know the
He's
Vikings are
so
very
bad,
good.
dude. He's so bad.
Yeah, it just
I,
at one point he was 6 for 22 against
yeah.
the That's
So
unreal.
I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but Cian Fahey. I don't know if you follow him. He
Yeah,
works. Yeah, he does a lot of quarterback breakdowns. He tweeted a GIF right of Osweiler throwing like a 7 yard out to the sideline. I'm not even kidding. The ball bounced before it reached the receiver. It bounced. It was the worst throw I've ever seen. He's bad. He's so
Yeah,
bad.
I know it's the Vikings, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you know what? Don't worry about it. The Vikings." The guy was 6 for 22. I don't care. I mean, if it's one of us, that means we play bad. You can't go 6 for 22, especially in that offense. It's not like he's throwing the ball 90 yards down the field every time. Just that was brutal, brutal
Yeah.
performance. For the other
This
side, though,
game, I
I
think
mean, do you like anybody for the? I mean, I know Houston. I'm out because DeAndre Hopkins against Bonte.
I'll probably have Will Fuller in a tournament lineup. Assuming Vontae's on Hopkins. And the Colts have given up a lot of big plays this year. I think this is Lamar Miller's breakout game. I have a lot of interest in Lamar Miller. His price has dropped to 6,600. Like he didn't have a lot of work because Houston was just getting blown out, which I kind of like because we didn't expect him to do well last week anyway. He only had 9 touches and kind of gets like a little rest, sort of, and now gets to come home. Or no, is this home? Yeah, it's a home game for Lamar Miller, so gets to come home against a bad Colts defense that has the oldest and slowest linebackers in the NFL. Dude's already on pace for like 370 touches, so Lamar Miller in tournaments is probably right there with Alshon for me in terms of GPP plays. I think he could go. I would not be surprised if this is his breakout game where he finally gets in the end zone. Like you can't have this amount of usage and not score. Like he's gonna score. He has 101 carries already, 16 or 14 receptions. Like he's gonna score, and it's probably going to be this week.
It's an interesting point. I mean, I know that as the offense, I would be off the Texans, but like you said, a guy that getting that many carries has to be on your radar. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love Lamar Miller this week. And then for the Colts, I don't know. Like I don't really love Andrew Luck here. Like I know he has upside and people are never on him in tournaments, but like if the Bears, who are a bottom 6 team in terms of pressure, got to him 5 or 6 times last week, like even without JJ Watt, I think Houston at home can get a lot of pressure on him. Spot for Andrew Luck. TY is interesting because like double digit targets, like we said, like you can't ignore guys getting double digit targets every week. Houston right now is 8th in the NFL in sack percentage, so Houston's defense could be interesting here. And we know
Yeah,
Luck turns the ball over.
I'm with you on Houston's defense. I think they could give up a lot of yards. We know how the Colts can pick up yards in bunches, but the Devion Clowney is playing very well. Ton of pressures,
Yeah.
getting a bunch of sacks. They have a guy on the other side that can still rush the passer, Whitney Merciless. It's an excellent rushing linebacker. I know they're without Watt, but it's not like they don't have any talent left on defense. We know the Colts offensive line struggles a lot of the time against speed rushers and power rushers. Texans have both of those for sure. Like you said, T.Y. Hilton, all those targets, I'm in for him. I'm off luck, though. I think the only guy from this offense I would be on would be T.Y. Hilton. And then we just talked about the other side. It's probably just Lamar Miller.
Yeah, and I'm not chasing Dwayne Allen yet from last week. Houston's been incredible against tight ends. Not only have they been incredible against tight ends, but look at the tight ends that they faced this season. I mean, they shut out Delaney Walker essentially a couple weeks ago. Rudolph didn't do anything. The Gronk game doesn't really count because he wasn't playing a lot, but still, Kelsey didn't do much against them. So, yeah, I'm off Dwayne Allen too. The only guy I'm interested in on the Colts is T.Y. Hilton.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the last game of the week, Monday Night Football. The New York Jets at the Arizona Cardinals. First thing I look at, Cardinals love to pass. The Jets have been horrible against the pass, like really, really bad against the pass this season. Second worst in the NFL. And receivers scoring fantasy points. They're in the bottom 5, and quarterbacks as well. The way we look at it, is Carson Palmer going to be back? Bruce Arians expected him to be cleared today, and I think Vegas agrees with him as they have the Cardinals right now as touchdown favorites. So for me, on slates or sites where they have that Monday night game, I do like this Cardinals passing offense. Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald, maybe a Michael Floyd share if he was healthy, but John Brown could be in play. The way I look at this game, same way I look at the Monday night game for this week, or last week rather, people seem to stay away from it regardless of where you're playing because the main slates, DraftKings and FanDuel, do not have Monday Night Football on their main slates. So on smaller sites where you can play, like on Fantasy Draft or Rosters, Fantasy Aces, other sites like that may have slates with Monday night games, you can get these guys low-owned. We saw it last night. Greg Olsen, low-owned. Fozzie Whitaker, low-owned. Cameron Sardis-Payne, low-owned. Those guys ended up having decent games, and people forget about them. So for me, I think you should pay attention to sites that have the Monday night game in their slates because Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald make for a very good stack. And we know about everybody's favorite running back, David Johnson.
Yeah, David Johnson is the GOAT. Probably going to have 100 scrimmage yards again. But yeah, like the Cardinals not only like to throw, but they love to throw deep, and that's the Jets' weakness for sure, as you saw last week. So I really like John Brown in this spot. Michael Floyd's been brutal, so I think John Brown could be really interesting. Could definitely have a couple big plays in this game. And then we've seen over the last 3 weeks, tight ends have destroyed the Jets. And I know the Cardinals don't have a tight end other than Jermaine Gresham, but he's not involved. But they do have Larry Fitzgerald, who's kind of like a glorified tight end right now. He's playing the slot a ton. He's a big guy. He gets in the seams of the defense. So, yeah, Fitzgerald's in another good spot. I think Palmer's in a good spot with the way this offense runs and the way it's similar to the Steelers spot. We know the Steelers love to throw deep and throw a lot. We know the Cardinals love to throw deep and throw a lot. And the Jets are terrible at defending the pass and the deep pass. So I think it's a really similar spot. Plus, you have a similar running back who's really, really good and is incredible out of the backfield. So David Johnson can catch a lot of balls if they struggle to run between the tackles too.
Yeah, definitely a game you want to target if you can see it because you got to remember that these games go too far low-owned, like we said. And it's not like it's a game where, there's a guy here that might do good. There's a lot of good plays for the Cardinals. As for the Jets, I think I'm off everyone, maybe Brandon Marshall, but he'll probably see Patrick Peterson. So I just don't think it's worth playing anybody on the Jets.
You can't play Matt Forte. He's been outscored by Bilal Powell in 3 straight weeks. You can't play Matt Forte.
Yeah, I think the Jets is a definite fade for me this week, considering the matchup and other options at similar prices that are just better all across the board.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's probably going to have like 60 rushing yards in this game.
He might have to. That'll be the only way they move the ball.
Yeah. And I talk about the Cardinals blitz a ton. So, and Fitzpatrick, he might get hurt, honestly, if he runs a lot because he tends to not slide and take, shots to the head.
Yeah, I just don't understand how a guy like that, 50 on the Wonderlic from Harvard, makes some really bad decisions on the football field.
It's good and bad because he does not care, so you don't have to worry about Brandon Marshall or Decker getting targets if Decker is alive.
If that game had gone any longer, Marshall may have had 900 targets last week.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up First and Goal for Week 6. We mentioned all the games this week. We touched on a lot, so be sure to keep an eye on our thoughts there. For the rest of this week at RotoCurve, there's going to be a lot of content, as always, for NFL. We have ownership information coming on Thursday night. Of course, we know about Adam's Pieces, as he does a beautiful job with cash pieces, GPP plays, and he also has one of my favorite bargain articles to read across the industry. We have a full database of red zone stats, team stats, red zone targets, red zone carries. Also have fantasy points per snap, which is a great way to measure efficiency. And in that database as well, you can find target rate, touch rate, snap rate, everything you could possibly think of to help your research go smoother in NFL DFS. We also have a DFS Pro, as I mentioned earlier, Brian Healy, who has been crushing his picks. He makes a cheat sheet each and every week, so be sure to find that on rotocurve.com as well. We mentioned Adam's pieces, and I just wanted to give him a pat on the back real quick, because if you guys haven't read them yet, the guy's been on fire every week. His picks have been fantastic, even more so to the degree in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But all season long, he's made a ton of excellent calls. If you read his article or play his picks in cash games, you've cashed very often this week. So be sure to take a look at those when they come out this week. If you like what you heard here, and we touched on a bunch of different stuff, all kinds of content, we mentioned a ton of stats, all the stuff you can find on this show, you can find on rotocurve.com. So be sure to go over there and get a weekly, monthly, 6-month membership, all kinds of options for you there. And since we love our listeners so much, if you use the promo code CURVE on rotocurve.com, we'll give you $2 off a weekly membership. So all that content we mentioned, all the ownership information, all of Adam's stuff, you can get that for just $5 this week. So be sure to go check that out. This has been First and Goal for Week 6, presented as always by Rosters.com. For Adam Pfeiffer, I'm Josh Kalachi. Good luck this week.